My name is Rob Morris. I'm with Caesars Entertainment. Just wanted to give a quick presentation to talk about the things we're doing in the built environment with our aging buildings and how we're trying to save energy from a portfolio perspective. So I'll first give you an introduction on Caesars and our approach. The strategies for retrofitting our aging facilities, then go into a deep dive example of one of our retrocommissioning projects that we've done on the Strip, and then wrap up with some Q&A. So about Caesars Entertainment, we are the most geographically diverse gaming company in the world. We've got about 50 properties internationally, about 40 of those domestically. We've got 11 here on the Strip, and a concentration of 3 properties in Atlantic City, and then the rest are basically in between in the middle of the country, spread out through Indiana, Mississippi, those areas, Iowa. We have, some of these numbers are slightly outdated, but roughly $10 billion of revenue each year. We have over 45 million total rewards members, which is our customer engagement, customer benefits program. We have nearly 59,000 employees. We get, some of this is hard, sorry. Over 100 million guest visits to our properties every year. We have 1.5 million square feet of LEED certified building, new construction. And we operate, our buildings are from an air conditioned square footage, the total about 56 million square feet conditioned. So there's a lot of things to do. Caesars has a code of commitment, long-standing code of commitment to first our employees, our guests, the environment, which I'll come back to, and then the communities that we operate in. And basically with our employees, we want to be a great place to work. We want diversity and inclusion. We want a health and wellness for our employees. With our guests, we want memorable experiences and gaming responsibly. We want them to be having fun. Environment is about energy, carbon, water, and the goals that we're talking about. And the communities is conducting our business responsibly, being a good community partner, providing revenue to the community. And these all basically feed into the connections that we have with the UN 2030 Sustainable Development Goals. It's a little bit cut off, but there's 8 down there at the bottom that are the primary ones that we're focused on. And I'm sorry, I can't pick that up. So with our sustainable goals, the code of commitment on the environment, back in 2007, we started declaring performance goals, basically. We started with an absolute carbon reduction goal the target was 2012 to reduce carbon absolute by 10%. By 2012, we achieved that goal. And so as we've gone through, we've kind of reset goals to continually push ourselves, all keeping 2007 as the baseline, with the exception of water. The water baseline was 2008, just from tracking and reporting and being able to set that baseline. We set it at 2008. So energy, we've got our current near-term goal is a 30% now on a per square foot basis, normalized per air-conditioned square foot. Same thing for greenhouse gas, 20% for water. Waste diversion, we're focused on the percent, of 50% diversion of waste from landfills. So we're focused on food waste, we're focused on basically everywhere in the Las Vegas on the Strip. We're sorting on the docks, we're sorting all of the trash that comes through the property, separating that into what can be recycled, what has to be thrown away. We're looking at food waste from food preparation. We're taking that and diverting that from the landfill, going to livestock feed and other uses. Green buildings, we want 100% LEED certified new construction on the buildings that Caesars has an ownership stake in. And then sustainable operation, there's Green Key certification, which is big for the hospitality industry. And we've maintained that all of our properties are achieving, or we've got a 100% target on it. We've also achieved it. That comes later. So strategies for retrofitting aging facilities. We've got, a few old buildings. The company's been around for more than 70 years. Flamingo is one of our properties on the Strip. It just celebrated its 70th birthday. Caesars Palace in 2016 turned 50 years old. So we've got some buildings with some old stuff in them that need some work. So assessing our portfolio, basically, we use a company that pays all of our utility invoices, electric, gas, water, chilled water, waste. Then, and they basically capture all of our costs, consumptions, put it into an online reporting database for us that we can use to track our consumptions cost, basically do our energy management, resource management. So we're able to put those all together, put the properties together. We're comparing them by square foot, looking for outliers from an energy use index, basically on where we target. We've got opportunities that we know of here and there that come up through the properties, but from at a corporate level and looking on an enterprise-wide basis, we're trying to see where the outliers are and where we should focus our money and energy. We keep it basically a measures tracker across all the properties. You can see the properties listed on the top, and then basically a hit list of known efficiency opportunities that we know we want to target enterprise-wide. Things like LED lighting, EC motors in certain applications, HVAC opportunities, you name it. So we're tracking which properties we've been able to hit, and we're trying to do basically enterprise-wide projects on those. So one of the initiatives is retrocommissioning that we started doing projects a few years back. I think it was about 5 years now. We had a property that put in capital to replace chillers because they had 7 chillers. They had the 7th chiller was not operational anymore. They were getting into the peak of the summer. They needed 6 chillers to run, and they said, we need this 7th chiller. So they got that capital approved. Our group in corporate stepped in and said, wait a minute, if we're going to spend this money, which I can't remember I think it was over $1 million. I think that was one of the ones where they approved the money, and we basically took that, redefined the scope into a retrocommissioning that eventually we upgraded the controls. We redid sequences on the central plant, and we don't need that 7th chiller anymore. Now we're operating 4 chillers at peak. We've got 2 extras. So, it just doesn't make sense to keep putting in the generation, basically. So I'm going to talk about, I'll go into that, sorry. I'll go into that a little bit later. So starting with the operating procedures, this is about conservation, basically. So we have lots of different use types in our buildings. Caesars Palace is over 6 million square feet. We've got, I don't even know how many restaurants, bars, we've got retail spaces. Those are not all 24/7 operations. They shut down sometime in the evening, early morning. So we're trying to make sure that everyone has, whether it's a leased outlet, whether it's our owned retail, that they've got defined shutdown procedures and that they are following those every time they're closing business, so that we're not leaving lights on 24/7, we're not leaving, you can see, so, stovetop burners running 24/7, not doing anything. But it happens because, so, somebody's got to take ownership of it. So we started performing basically these nighttime audits where our group would come in the middle of the night randomly, focus on a certain section, either food and beverage or retail or convention space, walk through, take pictures, take notes of what is still running. We see lights on. The top left picture you see is a walk-in freezer that was completely vacant. Lights on, still running. So we provide some feedback, some calculations on what energy that's wasting. Send that to the property general manager, communicate that, and try to get some action on that, and then continually following up. And we've seen much, vast improvements in these types of situations happening. So the first thing is first conserve. That's the best efficiency, and it turns into real dollars. Energy efficient lighting. We've been focused on LED lighting for, since 2010, since I started with the company in 2010. If everyone doesn't have LED lighting in their home and in their businesses, you should do it. It's a no-brainer. The cost has come down significantly. Now it's cheaper than even what CFLs were a couple years ago. They last forever. We should all do it. And that's what we're focused on at Caesars. So we started with MR16s. We have hundreds of thousands of those in the properties. They're everywhere from lighting decorative artwork, and you see them most prominently over the gaming tables. The architects love that spotlight, and we're going from 50 watt, 75 watt down to 10 watt LED lights. So it's a big impact, easy savings, and from what we were getting in 2011 when we were doing that to what you can get now today, it's amazing how much better quality and how much it actually mimics the halogen baseline. LED T8s, these are the 4-foot, not in this cove, but you would typically see them in a cove like this, in our back of house hallways, in the garages. We've focused on that for the last couple of years, hitting every property. Right now we've got 8 projects going back out, hitting some properties for a second time because of the lamps. There's just so many, it was too difficult to count, and we missed some of them. So now we're going back out and getting others that we're getting. There's a 50% rough energy savings on that. And it saves us from having to change the lights. So there's maintenance savings, there's energy savings. It's a good ROI, and the lamps are down to under $10 for sure. So those next, I think that's it's at least another 100,000 in those other 8 projects that we're doing. And I think that 500,000 is low. The common area, the PAR and R lamps, these are like these recessed cans. We're doing, we did all of Caesar's Palace throughout the casino 2 years ago, and focusing on those. Those are now plug and play. We'd prefer the properties are buying these as replacements and just kind of organically replace, but we're also focusing on as capital projects. Guest rooms. We're now, LEDs are standard for our guest rooms. Every new construction, every renovation, the LEDs are being spec'd in, and we're targeting those. And we've got, I think we've been really focused on renewing our hotel rooms on the Strip, and I think we've done about 10,000 rooms so far in the last 2.5 years of renovations. And we've got plans basically to go to 20,000 in the next 3 years until we have all of our 40,000 rooms upgraded. We're also doing here, if anyone's staying at the Rio, we're completing the guest room LED conversion now in both towers. About a $400,000 project with, I think it was about a year and a half ROI, basically, without a utility rebate. We had on every vanity in the Masquerade Tower, I think it was Masquerade Tower, there's 12 incandescent light bulbs around each vanity mirror. Big savings. So no-brainers. Water conservation. We've got a centralized laundry facility out of North Las Vegas that handles all the laundry for all of our properties in Vegas, including Laughlin. Big operation. We converted those to tunnel washers a few years back. Just big machines that you put it in one end and it comes out completely clean and dry on the other end. It was a huge 60 million gallons per year water savings for us. We're adopting low flow fixtures and urinals and toilets, shower heads, educating our customers. We've got, with all the hotel rooms and with all the guests we have, there's only so much we can do unless our customers actually contribute a little bit. So educating our customers on the in-room, the old hang up your towel, we won't wash it, all of that stuff. So it's pretty commonplace now. Xeriscaping and vegetation replacement, converting all of the sprinkler systems to drips, and most recently we replaced out in front of Caesar's Palace the lawn that was there is about 20,000 square feet with artificial turf. That's going to save about 1 million gallons a year, roughly. And then water treatment. I think we all know the HVAC in these buildings, the central plant systems, the cooling towers that are used to reject heat. Those use a lot of water. We use a lot of water for HVAC. So we've got a water treatment vendor that's put on monitoring on all of that. We have remote reporting when if we're blowing down water, something's stuck open, if we're just basically using too much water, or our chemistry is not right and we're not keeping the cycles that we need. Basic controls. Not too long ago, almost every hotel room you saw was a standalone analog T-stat that never shut off the fan. It would cycle the cooling, the chilled water valve, but the fans kept running. So we started with digital thermostats with occupancy sensors with a 12-hour timeout. That was basically as a project on its own, because it was a tough thing to do, to go to the next step, which is the network thermostats, which is now what we're doing. With those room renovations, when we're tearing everything apart, it's much easier now, much more cost effective to go to this network system, and provides much more benefit. So with that standalone thermostat, we had a 12-hour setback. We were just trying to get the unsold rooms, basically, and not cause issues of going into unoccupied mode while you're sleeping and things like that. Now this network thermostat has the door switch. It has the 15-minute timeout into unoccupied state. Gives us alerts when the fan coil is not operating correctly. If it's not meeting its set point, it triggers an alarm and tells us that we need to go and look at that hopefully before the guests notice. So there's much more benefit, much more energy savings, much better system. So it's win-win-win. So now I'll go into the deep dive on the retrocommissioning. I think this audience knows all of this, but this is just kind of a description of the differences between the types of commissioning, regular, new building commissioning, recommissioning, retrocommissioning, which is what I'm going to talk about, and then monitoring-based commissioning, or sometimes called continuous commissioning. So the new building commissioning is you got everything in the design, everything's spec'd, you build it, and then you're making sure that the systems are operating as designed. Recommissioning is going back to that initial design. So a couple years later, sensors are getting out of range, things are happening, we need to get it back. Nothing has changed in the building, we need to get it back to the day one operating. Retro-commissioning is where it's important for us in these old buildings, because after so many years and the way that we change the footprint, the layout of our buildings, restaurant is now a retail space, or it's casino, or we put in this separate walled up space where it was all open. We're changing the footprint, we're changing the use, we're changing how the systems need to perform. We build on, add on, now we need to add a new central plant, tie those together or not, all of these things. So we're trying to retro-commission the old systems to the new usage. And then typically we'll lead that into, after that, you go into the monitoring-based commissioning to try to maintain. Hopefully that wasn't too elementary for everybody. So why the retro-commissioning? Basically, what I was describing, we've changed the spaces significantly. There's new technologies out that were not available, and even now there's new technologies out that were not available 5 years ago that significantly benefit the properties. So the benefits, like we've discussed, it's indoor air quality. If you are, like I said, if we've walled in spaces, we've isolated a certain section of a major air handling system. If we're not getting the air exchanges, we're not getting the ventilation we need. Hopefully that was looked at the design. It's not always implemented as well. And just improving the building operation, creating new benchmarks, like I said, going into the monitoring-based commissioning. And obviously the main goal, which is the operational efficiency. So the typical measures we're doing, I'm going to go into a little bit more detail about Paris, Las Vegas, which I hinted at earlier, that was it was our second retro commissioning project that we have done. And basically we're looking at HVAC controls, because the controls are so outdated these days. We've got stuff that's no longer supported. We're looking on eBay to maintain some of these things, and basically we need a full upgrade. So looking at the scheduling, look at temperatures resets, chiller sequencing, making sure we're taking obviously the minimum outside air that we need, but there are times where you want to be 100% outside air and eliminate the mechanical cooling. Converting everything, putting variable speed drives where it makes sense, so that we're generating the chilled water and HVAC to match the load rather than just constantly pumping it out there. Lighting controls a little bit. We don't have a lot of lighting on the BMS controls. We have a lot of standalone room controls, like what this room is. We have some exterior lighting, but we want to make sure that those are on occupancy sensors or the exterior being on timers or photocells. And then the miscellaneous is basically, that's kind of the recommissioning of the subsystem. So like a heat exchanger, there's nothing really that changed there, but over time, it's either been neglected, needs to be cleaned, needs new actuators, needs new valves, things like that. Trying to get that back to day one operations, because we've seen a lot that over time it's just, we either can't get the money to maintain it, or, all the challenges within a building operator. So Paris, here in Las Vegas, it's 4.1 million square feet. It's got 2,900 rooms, 8,750 tons of chilled water in the central plant, 61 million kilowatt hours of electricity every year, and what is that, 185 MMBTU basically of natural gas. So utilities cost $5.7 million. It originally opened in 1999. And then has been, as it says, reconfigured over the years. We've had all on the front, on the strip side of the property, new retail, new restaurants. There's now a beer park, up where there was no building. So doors and windows are being left open to air condition the sidewalk and draw you in. Not really the purpose, but they want it to be inviting. It's one of our pet peeves. So how do we maintain that? How do we keep that conditioned air in? Because obviously the building wasn't initially designed for that. So the measures we implemented, the chilled water plant, we converted from constant primary, variable secondary to an all variable system. So installing variable speed drives, we did it through basically maintaining the bypass, I'm forgetting the word, it's not a bypass, help me out. What's that? Decoupler. Maintaining a decoupler flow of 100 GPM basically. So rather than changing out all the pumps and putting in one set of pumps to do a true variable primary through the property, we're still maintaining the primary, secondary pumps variable, balancing those. Like I said, upgrading the controls, we're going with backnet controls. We're ensuring that everything is open protocol. We're kind of tired of getting to where we are stuck with a proprietary system that nobody else can come in and service later, that we can't, parts become obsolete, and now you can't, you got to upgrade the whole system. We installed the variable speed drive on chiller 4. There's 5 chillers in the plant, so on chiller 4 it basically becomes the swing chiller to try to meet that efficiency, and when we're in between having to run chillers, we're not running 2 at 50%. We can match it into the sweet spot of the efficiency curves. And then the dedicated controllers, basically the central plant JACE, we've got a central plant optimization program that that one is proprietary, I guess, with optimization sequencing. But basically looking at that and learning at how the plant is operating and finding those variable efficiency curves. Variable flow on condenser water side, where that's normally, full single speed. I think there's a lot of differing opinions on that. You got to be careful as you're doing it so that you don't starve the cooling tower and end up scaling it up by having that wet-dry cycle. So you got to make sure you're hitting the minimum flows. But that's an energy saving as well. And then also the ability to run more cooling towers when you have less chillers, to try to basically, the game is get as cold condenser water as you can. Airside systems, the casino is this 4 air handlers of constant volume. There were lots of concerns from the property of, are we going to get the air down if we do this variable volume conversion? Are we going to hit the floor, all of that stuff? We did it, and we do. It's working very well. It's improved comfort, actually. We get less variations, I guess, in the complaints of too hot, too cold. So it's a more even temperature all around. So we're installing VFDs, on the air handlers, on the fans, modifying the sequences where we're hot conditions. Obviously, you want to minimize the outside air. We've got the smoking issue, basically, where we've got to balance the indoor air quality with minimum outside air. It's not just about having the right amount of fresh air. And then also, when it's cold outside, like we have a perfect environment in Vegas with being very dry and having a lot of cold weather in the winter. Cold, dry air gives us a lot of free cooling. We need to make sure that we're taking advantage of that. And we're not always thinking about that. Typical building operators they're wanting to make sure they're not getting the call of, from their boss, from the GM, so they're going to run it in the way that they know how, the way that they've done it for 30 years. So that's really one of the barriers. It's not some kind of epiphany that we should be doing that. It's how do we get our guys comfortable in operating that way and educating them, and make sure that the systems are functioning and able to do that. And pressure independent valves, the Belimo valves, we put in on 4 of the big air handlers, kind of as a trial, basically, a pilot to see how well those work. The pressure independent valves are basically trying to match the design GPM through those coils. Those are the big coils. They're closest to the central plant. So we strategically picked those to try to balance the flow through the rest of the system and make sure that we're not over pumping just because we're flowing twice as much chilled water through a coil that we need. Make sure that that's balanced and we can get it up to the tower, we can get it out to the end of the loops. And you can see the results. This is the baseline power consumption of the chilled water plant in blue, and then the retrofit power. This was basically this is a calibrated regression model based on measured data. So that's why you get that following. But it's basically yeah. And then here's an example on the air handlers. You can see in the blue, this was the baseline. It would start, run, consistent, and shut off on the schedules. Now with the red, you see it variable speed, variable power, and it's only supplying what we need. So there's a big component of the savings there as well. And like I said, it was a good ROI, simple payback of 2.75 years. That's with utility rebates. The total project was $1.5 million. Utility rebates of $233,000. Thank you, NV Energy. Annual savings of 5.5 million kilowatt hours. Basically, the energy that we're saving amounted to $483,000. And it impacts our greenhouse gas emissions. Big impact. So tying it back into how does that benefit our goals? We're setting goals. We're trying to see what we're doing. How are we actually achieving on those goals? These are 2017 numbers in red. They're estimates. As of now, we're going through our annual performance reporting through CDP and others, the voluntary reporting that we do. So it may change a little bit, but I think they're pretty close. So far through 2017, we're at 22% reduction per square foot on energy. We've exceeded the GHG goals. water, we stepped back a little bit. I think, not exactly sure what that's attributed to at the moment, but lots of expansions going on. Waste, we're almost at our 2020 goal. And then the green buildings and sustainable operations, again, that's the lead certifications and green key certifications for the hotel rooms, 100% on those. So proud to report that. And I think now we'll open it up to questions, discussion. Yes, sir.
Mike here for you.
Two questions. What color temperature do you kind of end up with? And then how does this light on your lighting, what color temperature did you end up with? And then on your manufacturer, how do you select which brand or product you went with?
The color temperature is very specific for us. We've got basically 2700 K in all of the front of house, just like you see this area here. We like the warm temperatures. We like them on the casino. So anything that's up front, we like the warm dimming as well. That was a big advancement for us that opened up more opportunities. Like I said, we'll talk about lighting forever because it's going to continue to be more and more opportunities. So we'll see what comes after LED or how efficient LEDs can actually get. And then that's the front of house. We try to stick with that. You'll see a couple things on retail stores. Sometimes a retail store, the way it looks, is more of a 5,000 K or somewhere in between. So here and there, but mostly front of house is 2,700 K, pretty strict. And a lot of the lighting manufacturers know that. They call that the Vegas color, just because of, it's tough to actually get some of those guys to manufacture that. But with the quantity that we have here on the Strip, I think they recognize it and push that. With the T8s, 5,000 K in the garages, and we actually went with high output to get better light output just from a comfort and security standpoint in the garages. And then back of house, again, 5,000 K normal output through our corridors. Your eye picks it up better. It looks a little cleaner. And then we standardize on 3,500 K for those warm locations, the office locations and that. So yeah, exactly. That's what we were standardizing on, try to get our buying power, all of that stuff. The manufacturers for us, we work with Phillips and Sylvania a lot, trying to stick with the big manufacturers that are there for us, that have quality products and can stand behind a warranty, which we've had to do every once in a while, so it's paid off. I think.
How do you have a fixed budget to invest for energy efficiency? And if you do or don't, how do you prioritize having so many properties and so many needs? Is there a matrix that you use to prioritize that work?
Do we have a fixed budget? No. We kind of yes and no. Previously, our group would have a bucket of capital dollars that we could prioritize energy efficiency projects as we saw, basically. And then how do we do that? It's one, what's ready, what's developed, and can we actually get to? And then where's the biggest bang for the buck on that? Because basically, the biggest bang for the buck on ROI on a project is also the energy savings, which correlates to the greenhouse gas and our code of commitment. So it supports everything. So right now we're really focused on maintenance, and I have a bucket for maintenance capital because through the recession and that we had to defer a lot of upgrades. So I've got a lot of maintenance projects, 3 cooling tower replacements here on the Strip, actually here, Rio, Flamingo, and Harrah's we just did. But while we're doing that, we're trying to make sure that we're getting the functionality that we need for that efficiency. We've got at Harrah's, like I said, we did that retrocommissioning. But these new cooling towers let us get a little more aggressive on the turn down on the cooling towers. I think it was a 50% turn down on those, all stainless steel, so we're planning to have those a long time, and make sure that they're operating well. The efficiency right now is where can we get them in, and we're competing basically with every other capital project. So new restaurants, which, you know, those are the ones that the GMs want to see, the new revenue generating, rather than necessarily the savings. But we can hold our own on it, but it's just with the limited resources we have, what can we actually get to this year? And as you stack them up, who's got the best ROI?
Are you meeting the requirements of ASHRAE 62.1 as far as indoor air quality in your casinos?
Yes, actually we are.
And are you monitoring? Because you said something that troubled me, is you're reducing your outside air in the summer and recirculating more air. How are you doing that?
Still meeting minimum requirements, but obviously if you don't need to be at 100% and condition all of that air.
So as the gaming community started to think what they did by lobbying against taking smoking out of the casinos, and would that help you reduce your outside air requirement and lower your load?
I don't know if it's, actually I haven't heard anything recently on the smoking and taking that outside. We've got some properties in other jurisdictions that are smoke-free, but no, we haven't done anything like that. What we have done, that I can tell you, is in 2015, for all of our Nevada properties that weren't LEED new construction certified, we did go through, I guess we can say that we're operating LEED equivalent. So we have gone through that assessment. We looked at every air handler. We looked at to make sure that we're getting all those ASHRAE requirements, and most of the properties would have qualified without having indoor smoking, would have qualified for the LEED Gold. Yes, sir. No, we're basically setting the minimum on design of the 15%, or I'm not an expert on that, but 15%. So we're stopping at that minimum. So we're not going a full CO2 monitoring and cutting everything off. I'm just saying we're starting there and going 100% or opening it up when the colder weather permits. Does that answer the question?
So I had a quick question about your retro-commissioning. Mike Pemplin with Jacobs. So when you start to rack and stack all your ECMs, do you have a specific ROI that you're looking for? And how do you justify some of the ECMs? For instance, you talked about backnet upgrades. So how do you quantify that as a ROI?
Well, that's kind of a requirement of being able to do some of the controls upgrades or the control strategies that we have, because we've still got properties with pneumatic. You know, we haven't done everything. We still have a lot of opportunities to get to, and the controls not on their own. But as we go through and do the retro commissioning and fixing issues that we've seen from leaking or open valves, damaged actuators, things like that, looking at it as a whole, that's what we're putting the ROI. And those higher ROI, like we could focus on lighting, this room specifically. There's a big ROI in this room, and it's just how do we get to all of those. But so if it was strictly on ROI, we'd go through and do everything on lighting. But the occupancy comfort and it basically is a big driver for that. So it's where is there a need, where is there a pending replacement of equipment, and can we do it more intelligently? Yes?
Were any of the implementation measures based on mandates?
I don't, no, nothing that I can recall.
So strictly ROI?
Right.
I have two questions, actually.
Sorry.
The first one is, do you have energy recovery wheels on the air handling units that you have on the buildings?
What was that, energy recovery wheels?
Yeah,
Do we have any?
do you have
On,
it?
I don't, we don't have any on the projects that we've done on the retrocommissioning. We've done about 5 in Nevada. We do have them in other markets, like in Hammond, Indiana. We have a lot of energy recovery wheels, actually, that are a little bit troublesome to do.
Because they'll help with the bringing more outside air
Right.
to
Right.
compensate for any CO2s or. Now, the other question is, have you ever considered going with the renewable energies or?
We have, that kind of goes back to my discussion about the conservation first. Our strategy has been, if we've got these high return energy efficiency projects, let's get the demand down and then put in the right size renewable energy. But we've also just recently left NV Energy's supply, still a DOS customer. But one of the drivers of that is that we can start sourcing renewable energy a little bit more competitively. And we do expect to actually go out for an RFP on renewable at a couple properties this year. We did attempt it, I'm forgetting the year, maybe 2013, 2014, but couldn't really get a good fit.
What was the implementation model for the project? Was it a turnkey from beginning to end, or did you?
Not necessarily a turnkey. It was a design, basically starting with an ASHRAE audit to look at the opportunities, kind of go through. The central plant is a little bit easier, and that's where we had started focusing. Going into the air side, as you can imagine, is very difficult to try to say, here are all the opportunities. So how do we go through and either do a statistical type of sample and have some confidence that here's the issues we found on this subset of units. Here's what we think extrapolating to the total set. So there's a little bit of risk in it, but we've had good partners from an engineering perspective, energy engineering consultants that do a good job of defining what we're doing now, what we can be doing, and basically they were pretty much right on the mark in the end. So no, it wasn't a like a GC type of thing. It wasn't a total turnkey. It was a partnership with controls, a partnership with energy engineering, and then some commissioning. Did you still have?
I was just wondering, do you use a lot, much steam, or do you reduce your steam usage, especially in laundries and kitchens?
We do have steam. It's not, Caesar's Palace actually has 5 big steam boilers that are for kitchen and domestic heating. We haven't focused on that too much, other than actually it was one of the things that we did through the retrocommissioning was the steam trap audit and actually measuring those and replacing those failed ones to identify those, because those are somewhat of a hidden that can go unnoticed for a while, but big savings there. So it's not a huge, I wouldn't call it a huge factor for us, especially with natural gas rates and, so. What do we got?
You mentioned that you changed the air handling unit to variable speed. How were you controlling the speed? Was that from the return air temperature or space temperatures?
It was let me see, we've probably done it both, but we've done, obviously, the duct static to maintain a minimum duct static, and then we're also varying the chilled water set point, so the supply air set point based on what the VAVs are calling for. I don't know if we've done average or worst case, probably worst case calling for, but resetting the supply air temperature and then duct static as well. Does that answer it? Huh? Dave?
Have you had any issues with theft of LEDs in guest rooms?
No, that actually was one of the, am I gonna? No, that was actually a real concern, because when CFLs came out, we invented these locks to try to keep them on. You know, that theft was an issue with CFLs. And that was one concern of should we go through with this LEDs. And we actually stayed back because guest rooms are a lower runtime than what we typically have throughout the rest of the property. So it's basically a lower priority for us, from maybe theft and also not knowing what the maintenance really is on it, because it's very difficult to do that. But actually we've so no, we haven't had any issues through standardizing our maintenance management platform with Maximo. All of our properties are now using Maximo to track work orders, and so now that we're getting into, it's another kind of exciting thing, long road, but we're getting into the asset management, and we've been able to actually put numbers to the hours that it takes to maintain the guest room lighting, and it was much more significant than what we imagined. So with that, we were able to say there's energy savings, but the maintenance savings as well, and everybody's happy. But no theft so far. Watch that guy.
Overall, your property's retrocommissioning efforts, what's your average ROI been?
It's been about the 3 to 4 year range on the retrocommissioning. Some of them, and like Paris, we hit a lot more of the air side than Paris and Harrah's, we did air side stuff more than others. We did in Tahoe, we did the central plant. Was just focused on the central plant, and that was another one of the property got funds to replace all of their chillers, and we said, wait a minute, if we're going to do that, let's do it with controls and everything as well. So we were actually able to, using the Caesars Entertainment buying power rather than the properties buying power, get controls, lower cost chillers, get all of that together for the same budget amount. So that was just the central plant. In Laughlin we did, and it was spurred by needing to replace cooling towers. So we thought, okay, we're going to do cooling towers, let's also do controls with it and take advantage of that opportunity. So there's a few that we've just been opportunistic on needing to spend some money and trying to get a little bit more bang for the buck, and then a couple that we specifically focused on actually going for that retrocommissioning need because of some other operational or performance spec. So, and Caesar's Palace was the only one that I didn't mention. We just finished up the retrocommissioning on that central plant. And that one was really a need for retrocommissioning because we had 3 separate plants built, 3 different phases. One was variable primary, the other 2 were constant primary, variable secondary, everything tying in eventually together. It's a beast to try to manage and keep all the flows balanced.
We got time for about one more question.
So hand here.
You said you're using a proprietary chiller optimization. Are you using that on all that same platform on all your plants?
Not on all the plants we've touched, yes.